Trinidad on a whole is a crime hotspot, particularly murders. When you look at Trinidad, there's no way going around it. Trinidad is a very violent place. Pretty much by any measure, by any metric, you compare it to just about anywhere in the world, Trinidad is extremely violent. Not just violent, extremely violent. And there are certain things that happen in places where there's this level of violence. Usually it is that the people in charge of countering the violence, the people in charge of maintaining the order, very often they are allowed to take some stricter, stranger, sharper methods and measures whenever the violence reaches this level. The people who employ the law enforcement, they will be a lot more okay with the law enforcement taking the law a bit more into their own hands when this level of violence happens. This level of violence scares people, and scared people allow for some very strange things to happen. Now, Trinidad and Tobago being in that stage, we may be on the ascending level of what the law enforcement may be pushed, encouraged, even demanded to do to get a hold on this crime situation. And in that, we very often see some of the interactions that happened over this weekend here, where someone was killed by the police. And unfortunately, or I don't know how you would want to think about this, according to how you think about this, unfortunately or fortunately, it was caught on camera. Someone was around when the situation was happening, and they recorded the majority of the incident. Now, the problem with cameras are great, but the problem with cameras is they would only give you a single perspective view. You understand what happened in this situation, but you only understand from one angle, from one perspective. You can't understand everything in and around this situation. And that's going to be what I'm going to dive into. We're going to look a bit at the video now. I hope no one reports this on YouTube doesn't take this too graphic, because the video isn't really graphic. You don't actually see the man being hit and all of that. So we're going to just take a little glimpse at that to see how what is the conclusion we could get of this? What would be our reaction looking at this video? Trying to think about it a little more nuanced. So we dive right into that. But before we do that, if you are not yet subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you do like this video. If you don't like it, well, drop a comment, tell me why you don't like it. If you do like it, still drop the comment too. Ring that notification bell so you know whenever these videos drop. You'd know when we go live, because we do go live pretty much every weeknight. All right, let's dive into the story, at least the way the news they carried it here. 9 shots for suspect. Commissioner of Police probe launched into police killings in Princestown. A video of a police killing in Princestown on Friday is being investigated by the Police Complaints Authority and police. In the video, a man lying face down and apparently complying with instructions from police was shot at repeatedly by an officer. This is the 12th police-involved killing for the year. The video, which was uploaded on WhatsApp groups and later on Facebook, captured the shooting, in which the suspect crawled in front of a crashed car and flinched spasmodically as a uniformed police officer fires off 9 rounds in quick succession in his direction. He was one of 3 men, including a special reserve policeman, being pursued by cops. The fact that one of these alleged bandits was a police officer, that tells you something about the state of crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Regularly, you see in many of these murder scenes, regularly, the shells that are found after a murder scene, you see TTPS shells, you see Trinidad and Tobago Regiment shells. So the involvement of our law enforcement on the other side is a known thing too. So especially when you're talking about the law enforcement taking the law into their own hands, that's something to consider, that actually they're already, well, some of them might already be on the outside of the law, giving them the ability to now function with impunity outside the law. When they already do it, may put you in some more tight situation. So we're going to look a bit at the video. As I said, the video isn't that graphic, but I think it makes sense to understand some of the things going on in this video, to look at it again. Now let's watch this. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, at the very beginning of the video, a shot looks like it hit the pavement right next to where the police is standing. Right next to it, there's a little puff of dust right there. You see it right there. A shot hit right there. That shot. Now, I don't know who that shot came from. I can't tell. And that's the same thing I was saying with the video problems. Videos give you one perspective. We're seeing this from one angle. I don't know who that shot came from. Obviously, it couldn't come from the officer who's pointing his weapon at the man. He couldn't shoot and hit himself there. So as far as he knows, a shot just rang out right near to his foot. And the article had it that the suspect was laying on the ground, apparently complying with instructions. This is the only video I've seen out there. I have not seen that. I haven't seen it. He's obviously laying on the ground. I don't see him complying with instructions because I can't even hear the instructions here. Now, to his, I don't know if that would be credit me because I think he's deceased, but on his side, maybe, to his point, I don't expect him to be on the ground there with his hands up saying, okay, wait, because he's hearing gunshots ring out. So he may be trying to scamper for safety, but at the same time with gunshots ringing out, according to the police, what the police said is these men were shooting at them too. So if a police is responding to this situation, these men are already, according to the police's version, these men are bandits. They are armed. They already rammed into a police cruiser. They're trying to escape. They're willing to kill police to escape. That's the attitude you're going into this situation with. You come and then imagine you are this officer. You are not the person with the camera. You are this officer. Now, the rest of that might be a bit graphic to just plain watch through like that. But if you look at it from the beginning, the man is at the side of the car and he lunges and jumps and crawls to the front of the car. For him, he may be just trying to, in a vain attempt, save his life. But for the officer, we are seeing this. The camera for this is from his perspective. We're seeing what is behind the car. From the officer's perspective, all he would be seeing is a man's leg and the man is lunging to something behind the car. How is the officer supposed to know that there isn't a weapon behind the car? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm one regularly criticizing police officers. I have no problem critiquing the police, but in something like this, when I look at the amount of people that are looking at this video and getting some conclusion that obviously the police murdered this man, when you look at this evidence, I don't see this from this video. This officer isn't seeing what the man is reaching for behind the car. He doesn't know what the man has in his hand. All he knows is he's in a situation here where a man is said to be violent and dangerous and trying to escape. I don't see this as purely murder just based on this video evidence. I don't see it. I just don't. And the reality is, I've seen some people phrase things this way. You forfeit your right to live. What that saying means is, if I pull out a weapon and charge at someone else, in the process of while I'm doing that, I have pretty much forfeit my right to live. If someone kills me in that process, they have a right to kill me because I forfeit my right to live by endangering someone else's life. So in a situation like this, these men, and something that annoys me about the crime so much in Trinidad and Tobago is so often we see a lot of the robberies and criminal activity all around the country perpetrated by men from in the north and northwest region. That seems ridiculous. These men were caught in Princestown, all three of them from Diego Martin. You're already outside of your area doing what? Armed, going to rob people and distress them. Listen, to me, there's a lot of forfeiture happening there. Now, I'm not saying that police have a right to kill someone in cold blood. They don't. That would still be murder, correct? But the situation you put yourself in, it's very difficult to try to get a defense for that because you weren't in a situation where you were supposed to be. The further you are away from where you were supposed to be, the less people tend to pay attention to what happens to you. And there was a bit of news I was looking at out of South America, El Salvador. El Salvador had one of the highest murder rates. And recently, I was looking at a video produced by the president of El Salvador, showing 2,000 prisoners, was it? I think it was 2,000 prisoners that were arrested and heading on their way to a prison. thousands of tattooed inmates pictured in El Salvador mega prison. The first group of 2,000 suspected gang members in El Salvador have been moved to a huge new prison, the centerpiece of President Nayib Bukele's self-declared war on crime. Tens of thousands of suspected gangsters have been rounded up in the country under a state of emergency following a spike of murders and other violent crimes. The jail will eventually hold more than 40,000 people. Pictures show the first massive group of inmates, tattooed and barefoot, being led to the facility in shackles. The president posted that video on his Twitter profile. And you're reading the comments, you're reading the articles coming out of this, and all around the world, the people who are more into the human rights areas and stuff, they're complaining about this. This wraps up innocent people. There are some people who are saying, as part of the criteria of who they're arresting out there in El Salvador, once you have a gang tattoo, they arrest you. Imagine in Trinidad, they came to Trinidad and anyone throwing up one of the numbers, you know the numbers, they're throwing up the numbers or they have it tattooed on their body, they arrest you. Throw you in a mass prison. And the country doesn't complain for it. The country would not complain for it because that's the state of violence in the country. If you read the news coming out of El Salvador murders plummet by over half in 2022 amid gang crackdown. San Salvador. Murders in El Salvador tumbled 56.8% in 2022 amid a widespread crackdown on gang violence. The government said on Tuesday, extending a sharp drop in killings in a nation which for years had one of the world's worst murder rates. Authorities registered a total of 496 homicides last year, down from 1,147 in 2021. You're hearing that difference? 1,147 down to lower than Trinidad's last year murder rate. By the way, 496. By going out and arresting everyone who looks like a gangster. That's what they did. Everyone who looks like a gangster, feels like a gangster, you're going to prison and you're going to stay there for a very long time. And what would you know? By doing that, the country has become less violent. So now, looking at something like this, 496 homicides last year, 1,147 the year before. Do you think the citizens of El Salvador would have much of a problem with the government doing anything to those men? Do you think there would be a great protest in El Salvador? Please release these 2,000 plus gangsters. We are upset that you didn't follow the laws, that you didn't follow their human rights, that they weren't allowed to be innocent until proven guilty. How many El Salvadorans do you think would have that kind of view? I don't think much. I don't think many. And I think a country like Trinidad and Tobago may be heading in a kind of direction there. Trinidad and Tobago and El Salvador share some similarities, at least one major significant one. We're both named after God. El Salvador being the Savior, Trinidad being the Trinity, both named after God. So there's that similarity. And you could wonder at what stage Trinidad may reach to be in a place like that, where so many people would be asking and willing for the government to even bend laws to get things around that level. You see, El Salvador reached 1,147 murders. We're now over 600. Who knows? Maybe we'd be waiting for a time like that, because as it stands, there's still a large population in Trinidad who does seek the better interests of even the criminally minded. And some people like to say, well, you must be families with the criminals. You know, there are people always in the comments saying, but the police didn't have to kill them. The police didn't have to do that. And I wouldn't say that the people who defend these things are necessarily friends and family to the criminally minded. The reality is that's the way the law is supposed to function. Ideally, you don't want the law enforcement or police or any of the authorities outside of the law. You want people to be looking at this and making sure that they perform their duties within the scope. But it's a kind of results-based thing. The worse it gets, the more people will ask them to go outside of the scope. And if you're one of those that are very concerned, you're very concerned about the level of violence that the police perpetrate, about the rules that the police are allowed to break, or which rules are pushed for them to follow, the law enforcement in general also, then how violent the crime gets will be very pertinent to you, because the more violent it gets, as I keep saying, is the more people will be willing to turn a blind eye to whatever is done, at least is said to be done, to help it. That's all I have for now. Drop a comment, tell me what you think. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you in the next video.